be meters, it could be sensors which will be doing this task. Then you transfer this data. It could be machine-to-machine transfer, or it could be transferred through the wireless communication or Bluetooth or anything. You transfer this data, and then you connect it to the devices, that is the internet you use, and from there you go send the data through that internet to the web, which is the web of things will take care of it. Then from web it goes to the unifying the data on a semantic web of the things, IoT, and from there interpret data, and that data is then finalized in terms of data for consumer, for action. So these are all the technologies which are part of the smart city domain. In other words, the same thing we put as better data gives you better decision-making process. Intelligent infrastructure gives you more efficiency. Economic competencies, competitiveness it provides, green and sustainability, and low carbon business, social inclusiveness, and citizens engagement. These are the turning traditional infrastructure into the smart infrastructure. All these features will do. Communication in a smart city will connect through an information hub, what we call as the information map. The city information hub will connect all the services together. And this will be through a communication network. Whether it is sewerage service or city government, or it is environment and pollution, or it is health, all of them will come into a centralized information gathering system from where actions will emanate. So we need to provide for the smart city the same communication network. And for this, the technology has completely changed today. The top 10 computer and IT trends which are going to be part of this are mobile clouds, web of things, big data, 3D as I mentioned to you, new learning styles, new mobile networks like 5G will come into operation, balancing identity and privacy, e-governance, and scientific cloud computing processes. When you have such a complex system where communication is there, data networks are there, security becomes very important. So IoT security, if it is not secured, you are likely to run into chaos. So you have in the OT security like dependent devices, where you start with authentication, with authorization, communication encryption when it is being taken. Data leakage has to be prevented, and spoofing should be avoided. Similarly, semi-intelligent devices, for example, you have to provide access control wherever you're doing. You have to provide data encryption. You have to have the security there and things like that. Now, for this, the entire cybersecurity network of the smart city has to be controlled both in terms of threat detection, threat identification, and also enabling the citizens to use them. That means certain amount of training and practices that have to be built inside. Why do we care about IoT? Everybody says that we'll have IoT in the smart cities. It is basically, it can reduce large system inefficiencies. For example, low capital utilization, high labor costs, large material wastage, which exists today, they all can be avoided if we use IoT. And this graph shows you how it can be done in terms of system inefficiency as percent of system's total economic value. The large figures are giving you the values of the total and how the improvement, what percentage it can take if you make the systems, whether it is education, communication, electricity, and healthcare, and so on. The industry which is going to be part of the smart cities also have to be looked at. And what are the industries? Because, for example, facilities management. It will address today's green initiatives and complex regulatory compliance requirements and help minimize cost while ensuring safe work. Data centers will be there. It will demand computers, power, etc. for doing the data centers as instruments for meeting all the challenges. Similarly, you will have telecommunication network, which will again be part of the data centers for communication. Similarly, you have transport industry. Road, rail, air, and water transmission networks are complex. They must operate safely and reliably and efficiently and be regulatory compliant. We cannot have without regulations. Water and wastewater industry. This will be basically to provide an affordable service to customers while pursuing sustainability goals. Substation automations, energy. If you are going to have intelligent energy systems, then your substations have to be completely automated. Alternate energy, for example, solar or wind or power, all of them have to be part of the grid. They have to be also provided as part of this. Even manufacturing in the smart city is going to take a different shape. For example, in the earlier days, we used to do what is called traditional manufacturing, in which the manufacturing was being done by substitution. Now today, we then switched over to lean manufacturing, where we are reducing the waste. Then we came to green manufacturing, where we are making systems which are energy benign. That's what I was mentioning you, the 3R, and now we are in the 6R mode. And then today in the smart city, it will be sustainable manufacturing, where the focus will be remanufacture, redesign, recover, recycle, reuse, and reduce. So this is the kind of a system that will come. The energy grids in the smart city will be, for example, smart buildings in the smart city. The smart grid ensures the balance between the generation and the consumption and integrates renewable energy sources through a bidirectional energy and communication flow. These are very important because smart grids smooth the way for mobility free of carbon dioxide. They ensure the integration of renewable energy with rest of the energy sources. So smart grids are going to be part of the smart systems. There are challenges in setting up the smart cities. And what are those challenges I want to address to you? For example, there are technical challenges, there are financial, there are challenges of economic nature, environmental, service delivery, social, institutional, and governance. Let us take one by one. For example, technological challenges, if you want to see, you have deployment of integrated infrastructure and platforms. That's a challenge. Ensuring systems and data security, as I mentioned to you, is a challenge. Ensuring the adoption of interoperability of the standards. If I have got a service which is for the pollution control and a service which is for education, interoperability I have to mention. If they don't have, somebody is working on 3G, somebody is working on 5G, somebody is going to work on a Bluetooth, I think these are all going to be major problems. Interoperability has to be maintained. Provision of analytical methods need to integrate. Optimizing the use of limited resources. Managing the spectrum utilization. Communication spectrum utilization has to be managed. And producing and delivering a scalable solution. There are many technical problems associated when you go for a complex system which is ICT based. Financial, of course, you always have. For example, India has asked for 100 cities to be made smart cities, but with an initial investment of only 100 crores. In a situation like that, ensuring availability of financial resources, if you want to have smart cities, is very important. Addressing possible lack of capacity for attracting investors. How many people would like to invest, assuming that there is going to be a major return on this? Cost-effective building and facilities, and long-term sustainability of the delivered solution. These are the financial. The big questions are raised. Is it going to survive? Economic one is, many times we have budget cuts affecting the local governments. Obtaining funding for the smart city initiatives. Improving local competitiveness against regional and international markets. Diversifying economic activities. Reducing capital and operational expenditure. These are some of the major economic issues which remain as a challenge. Environmental, of course, all of us know that whenever you are trying to set up any new city or smart city, you have a major issue of environment, and they are related to protecting the natural resources and green areas. Addressing the scarcity of the natural resources. Reducing dependency on gas and oil. That's why I'm now working on methanol economy. I want to make sure that we reduce the use of fossil fuels and we use methanol or alternate fuels which are less polluting. Reducing emissions generated by transport systems, air pollution, energy consumption, all these things are environmental issues. Service delivery, because there is a huge demand for water, energy, and sanitation, waste is generated in a huge manner, so how to dispose, how to make sure that you have municipal budgets to do that. Increased pressure on housing, improving public safety by reducing crime and emergency response time, reducing traffic congestions, construction of comfortable city facilities and buildings, improving quality of services by delivering innovation service. See, friends, we are trying to do things in today's environment also. I was telling this to somebody. We are trying now to change the face of Delhi. In the Kidwai Nagar or Sam Nagar, now the multi-story buildings are being built, which are touching one, almost there's a handshake distance between the two, and the green spaces are not there. Even in today's world, in this century, we are not taking care of what are the major requirements as far as environment and service delivery is concerned. Imagine about 10,000 people living in that small space. what kind of traffic problems will be there, what kind of sanitation problems will be there. I think this is the lopsided planning which is even today going on, and these are the challenges, that's why we are highlighting here. Social, of course, ensuring social inclusion, social and territorial cohesion, equity and fairness, these are some of the things which are challenges. The institutional, you have time problem?
Yes.
Ah,
I'm so sorry.
you started late.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, so if you started late, you have to pay for it.
Hearing you speak is no payment, it's a benefit for
Okay, so when we have to set up the smart cities, we have to take into account a few things. Define a national vision, strategy, and governance model for smart cities. Establish public policies that facilitate implementation of smart city strategies. Ensure coherence of policies. If you don't have coherence of policies, you will have run into problems. Don't forget citizens and key actors. Measure and monitor smart cities' readiness, progress, and impact, and build a culture of innovation as part of the system. I just want to spend a few more slides with the Indian urbanization system. If you see today, there is an Indian fast urbanization in India. We have a rapid pace of urbanization, population of India 1.2 billion, level of urbanization 31%. Urban population 377 million. Increase in population in 1901 it was 25 million and now it is 377 million. So 15 times. Increase in the number of urban settlements is about 4 times. This is the kind of growth that has taken place. These are the cities who have got development pressure is concentrated in metros. And you see Mumbai is about 18.4 million, Delhi is about 16.3 million, Calcutta is 14.1 million, then of course Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and so on. So number of metropolitan cities and share of urban population is indicated here. For example, in 2001, we had 53 metropolitan cities with about 42.6 urban population. So urban India, between 2010 to 2030, will have the following features. 590 million to live in urban India, twice the size of the US population. 70% GDP generated by cities. 80% revenue generated by cities. 4-fold increase in per capita income. 5 times the number by which GDP would multiply. 270 million will net increase in the working age group. And 70% of the new job generated in cities. 91 million urban household will be middle class up to about 22 million. That is the situation. 68 cities will be metropolises like Europe has only 35. 1.2 trillion capital needed to meet projected infrastructure demand. 700 to 900 million square meters of residential commercial area needed annually, almost like setting up a new Chicago. 2.5 billion square meter roads paved 20 times created in the last decade. That's what happens. 7,400 kilometers of metro needed. 200 million rural Indians to benefit living close to top 70 cities. And 75 urban India to live in bottom segment, earning only 80 per day. That is the kind of situation. So India needs smart urbanization. And that is what we talked of. What are the methods? We have to do water, governance, power, energy, mobility, and all those aspects, education, and that urbanization is needed. And there will be 13 benchmarks for the smart Indian cities: transport, spatial planning, water supply, solid waste management, 100% collection and recycling, stormwater drainage, electricity, includes covering all households and providing electricity 24/7, telephone connections, Wi-Fi, healthcare, education, firefighting, all of them have to be made part of it. If we have all these 100 cities as we have planned, they become smart by 2020, which is not a very achievable goal. But if it happens, then you have 200 billion additional contribution of shortlisted cities GDP after transformation. You have 10 million number of jobs created due to smart city initiatives. You have 40% contribution of the smart cities in urban population in India. You will have real estate industry's contribution to India GDP by 2020 from 6% to about 10%. Savings in traffic congestion with the help of smarter technologies will give you almost $10 billion. And reduction in energy consumption due to smart infrastructure, 15% saving in water losses will give you about 40%. These are the kind of gain it will happen if we really do 100 smart cities. And for those who are looking at business in the smart city area, you can see you have a huge business as far as the smart city is concerned in terms of billions of dollars. And smart cities will create huge business opportunities with a market value of almost about 1.5 trillion by 2020. That is the kind of world picture which has been indicated. And globally, smart cities are growing at a rate of about 23%, and you have the revenue coming out to $2,577 billion. That is the kind of growth which is taking place. Certainly, this is one area which we have to cash on, both in terms of business as well as in terms of meeting the sustainability development goals. I think that should be over. Thank you. Yeah, I have no problem. Whatever I can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for this amazingly rich and detailed presentation on smart cities, detailing its defining features, the network, how these features network with each other to create a rich jacquard of urban development. Now, I'm sure there may be some questions that have come in the minds of those who are present here. If there are any questions, we can restrict it to maybe 1.5 questions, and if not, we will just continue. Actually, our problem here is that there is a deadline on when we need to leave the hall. That is why I'm being so brutal about timing right now. So are there any questions? Otherwise, we'd like to say our thank you, sir, to you for this amazingly rich presentation by asking our volunteers here to present this memento. It's a small token of our deep appreciation for this presentation, for the time you've spent with us. Thank you, sir. As Dr. Saraswat goes and takes his seat in the hall, I'd just like to remind our student attendees that you must collect your certificates on your way out, and our professional guests that when you step out, please do remember to collect your saplings. And now we see a very short film on Dr. Jain, which we call the testimonial film, for it brings the expert voices of the industry and the views of those who worked with him. The testimonial film.
Thou hast made me endless, such is thy pleasure. This frail vessel thou emptiest again and again, and fillest it ever with fresh life. Thy infinite gifts come to me only on these very small hands of mine. Ages pass, and still thou pourest, and still there is room to fill.
I think he's the best, okay? And I don't think India is going to see another PC Jain for a long, long time to come.
And he's always been very, very diligent in the way he has approached anything that he does. More so air conditioning, but I think that he's been the forefather of ISRE as well as the ASHRAE chapters here in India.
I think he's a person who, his DNA is basically green, and he is very passionate about it.
I can say as a professional, he's a genius. And as a person, he cares for the society.
What can you say about a person who in 1959, does something to do with efficiencies of the kind that we are today talking about in HVAC?
Thinking about sustainability, thinking about green in the mid-80s, when nobody was thinking about it.
He is the father of green. I would say he is a father of greening India. And Dr. Jain is not just an ordinary person for us, he is our inspiration. He is inspiration not for the just present generation, but for the future generation as well.
So leadership for the Green Building Council has become very important, and in taking forward from where he did earlier the chapter on air conditioning and heating in the National Building Code, which is like the Gita for the whole construction sector, which is the model for that. He is now part of the new chapter getting added. This is incidentally the first time anywhere in the world of what is called the sustainability issues being added in the built environment.
Whatever today the movement are, it's because of the leadership of Dr. Prem Singh Jain. Today we talk about the billion square feet green footprint, but all because of his own initiatives and his support to the nation.
Out for perfection in whatever he does. Perhaps the most humble man I've ever seen.
He's a perfectionist. Learn from him how to do the things in a nicer way, the best way and the perfect way.
Phenomenal to have put India on the global map in an area that he's so passionate about.
He had this unique way of connecting with people, of being able to motivate them.
Tremendous commitment to work, and his very gentle and way of talking. Never excited, very low key.
He empowers you with so much trust and confidence that it brings out the best in you. And no matter what his motivation and constant encouraging you, you want to do the best.
The kind of energy, the kind of enthusiasm, the kind of willingness to share his knowledge, that's really tremendous and something very rare in the field that he comes from.
He's a great humanist. He's a person who thinks beyond, who looks beyond. For him, it is not his selfish interest. It is the development at large. A person who thinks for the next generation.
I think his greatest contribution here has been the networking. I mean, the number of people all over the world who know him, who he knows, that he deals with on a personal level in this area is just wonderful.
For any discussions, we were always welcome to his house, come office.
Passionate, dedicated, full of energy, humble, and one of the most loving persons I have met.
Brilliant mentor. He has shaped our lives, and we are here and what we are because of him. So, excellent person and a great mentor.
There are many aspects of his personality, but I would relate more so with him as a friend, as a caring individual, as a warm individual, and as someone who's forever willing to share thoughts and listen to you carefully. So my knowledge of Dr. Prem Jain is very, very positive.
When I think of Prem, I think of Renu and Payal in one breath. And for me, that's what Prem is, a family person, a very complete man, so to speak.
A person who makes everyone else around him great.
I have seen God in him. I don't know whether God is there in temples, but I have seen him.
Prem was very soft-spoken, very persuasive, very convincing, chose simple words when he spoke, and was very knowledgeable on what he said.
Dr. Prem Jain is an infectious person. People cannot forget him.
After hearing this testimonial film and after seeing after seeing how many people spoke up for Dr. Jain, I'm not surprised that the week that has been within which this function today has been located has seen partners, stakeholders, collaborators come together across India to present more than 50 events which have ranged from academic discussions to lectures, plantation drives, sapling giftings, and essay and drawing competitions. So if you think that this is it, no, we actually have more things coming forth in the next few days, and I invite Mr. Pradeep Agarwal onto the stage. Mr. Agarwal is of DIPM, and he's going to talk about some of the events that have been planned by his organization in the memory of Dr. Jain. Mr. Agarwal.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Good evening to all of you. This is just for the short announcement. The DIPM Council of India is patronized and guided by our chief guest, Dr. V.K. Saraswat. We have been conducting seminars and the workshops on separate subjects. So with inspiration and guidance from Dr. Saraswat, on 1st and 2nd February, we are organizing a DIPM Solar 2019 for discussion onto the solar power generation, solar technology, and renewable sources of energy, which is, this is being done by the defense people and organized by the Military Engineer Services and the Defense Infrastructure Planning and Management Council of India. And in this seminar, we have organized the Harit Prem essay competition also, and we got some entries from the students from the different colleges. We'll be announcing the award on that. So any student who are here wants to participate in that essay competition, it is still open, and one can visit the website dipmcouncil.org. Now with this gathering, I want to invite each one of you into this conference. And in the memory of Dr. Jain, I invite you as a free delegates. We are organizing, and the Military Engineer Services is organizing with the blessings of Dr. Saraswat. So kindly register onto the website dipmcouncil.org as the IGBC or the ISHRA delegates. And kindly come onto this thing. We have lined up very good lectures, very good speakers onto the DIPM, onto the solar technology. And we will be implementing lots of solar power generation in the defense infra. I belong to the Military Engineer Services, and I am working in the Northeast. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agarwal. May I add my words and tell you that there are some other activities that will be happening. For instance, the Trust has instituted 2 awards. The School of Planning and Architecture will be awarding annually the Prem Jain Gold Medal. And the APJ School of Architecture and Planning is looking at presenting the Prem Jain Energy Award, which it shall be doing so at the APJ Festival of Ideas by Ignited Minds, which is scheduled on the 22nd and 23rd February 2019. So you see, the Trust has not only been very busy, but the scale of activities is only growing. In the times to come, I'm sure we will have a very rich calendar of activities directed at achieving the aims of the Trust. I'm sure many of you have attended our activities over the week and may have taken pictures. Some of you may have taken pictures today too. May I request you to please share them on social media? You could use hashtag Prem Jain Memorial Trust or hashtag HPBM 2019 or even hashtag PJMT. I really would be very surprised if there isn't enormous activity here. Finally, as we come to the closing moments of today's function, I would like to invite our trustee, Ashish Rakheja, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Grateful to the trustees as well as the Board of Governors for setting a clear path on how to carry the message for Dr. Jain what he stood for. If you all recall, and many of you have been part of that, I remember that, January 26th, his birthday, he used to celebrate where the entire industry used to get together. So his birthday actually had become an event where the industry members from all walks of life, from all over India, used to come, be there, and interact. It was an event that we used to all look forward to. And after that he's gone, it's not surprising that we have this idea of Harit Prem Week or the Harit Prem Mahotsav that we are celebrating, which coincides with his birthday, with the idea of bringing the synergies among all the societies, all the walks of life, all the walks of people that he worked with. We got them together. We said, why don't we do something? It's not surprising to see the number of activities that took place. Payal did not speak about that, but I can just tell you, the IGBC, ISHRE, ASHRE, DIPM, Indian Plumbing Association, a lot of corporates, they came together to do over 60 activities in just the 7 days time. And those activities ranged from doing the painting competition, doing the essay competition, to doing greenathon, walkathon was there, and also some technical addresses. So 60 events happening simultaneously across the country, starting from northeast down to south, Kalpakkam, to here right in Delhi, to areas that you name it. I think something like about, if I'm not wrong, it took place over 30 cities in India. Am I right in saying that? Yeah, over 30 cities in India simultaneously the programs were taking place. And they continue to do so for some more days to come. And Mr. Pradeep Agarwal just spoke about it. So what you see this address, the memorial address that we started, it's an event that we like to continue year after year. We like to invite renowned speakers from India to come forward and give their views on sustainability. The trust is very active. You'll see many more activities coming from it. It's just been a month and a half that the trust has been around. We've been putting our act together, and we had a Board of Governors meeting which took place before this event, and I can tell you there's much, much, much more to come, and we will definitely carry the legacy forward. Grateful to Architect Shankar for flying down from Kerala all over here to give the opening memorial address, and of course Dr. Saraswat, who's very well known here in Delhi for his contribution to Niti Aayog as well as to the science and technology. So thank you to both the honorable speakers for being amongst us. My special thanks to especially the Board of Governor members. The Board of Governors are the members who are working on voluntary capacity. IGBC Chairman, Mr. V. Suresh, Mr. Raghupati, Arun, many others. I think it'll not be fair naming all of them in the interest of time, but grateful to the entire Board of Governors for being here. And last but not least, the students, as well as to the distinguished guests, the fraternity members who turned up in large numbers in remembrance of Dr. Jain, just to get just to feel his presence here once again. In fact, I was talking to someone with Arun, in fact, at the start of the event when the movie was being played, and he mentioned, he said, when the movie was being played, it was eerie that you could feel as if Dr. Jain was walking amongst us. So that was the persona, that was the man, what he stood for. So thank you again for everybody for being here, and I look forward to your participation in future events. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rakheja. May I request you now to proceed for tea outside this auditorium. I hope you have a great evening, and I wish the Trust all the very best in its future endeavors. Namaskar.